Almost every nation on Earth claims to want peace. Yet we spend billions of dollars every single day arming ourselves against each other, while simultaneously draining the shared natural resources we all rely on to survive. This happens because of a dynamic called a social trap, or the tragedy of the commons. If you look at it from the perspective of just one person, taking a little extra from a shared pool seems perfectly rational. But when millions of people make that exact same logical choice at once, it scales mathematically into a collective disaster. To figure out how to avoid this kind of ruin, we first have to understand the specific psychological triggers that force the human brain to abandon cooperation and retreat into destructive tribalism. In the 1950s, a researcher named Muzaffar Sharif decided to map this out. He brought 22 well-adjusted 11-year-old boys to a summer camp at Robbers Cave State Park. He split them into two factions, the Rattlers and the Eagles, and kept them physically separated. After a week of building separate group identities, Sharif introduced a catalyst, a win-lose tournament. The boys competed in baseball and tug-of-war for medals and pocket knives. Almost instantly, fierce tribalism erupted. The first symptom was a mirror image perception. The Eagles genuinely believed they were brave and righteous, while the Rattlers were sneaky and cruel. The Rattlers believed the exact same thing in reverse. This mutual distortion was fueled by the fundamental attribution error. Because the boys were blinded to the intense situational pressures of a winner-take-all game, they naturally assumed any hostility from the other side was proof of their inherently bad character. When resources are perceived as scarce, the human brain defaults to a rigid us versus them architecture. It doesn't matter that these boys were essentially identical in background and age. The structure of the game demanded an enemy. Sharif then tried the most obvious cure, just bringing the kids together. He stopped the competition and forced them into the same dining hall to eat and watch movies. But with the hostility already entrenched, mere contact provided an opportunity for taunts, which quickly escalated into full-blown garbage wars. This aerial map of a desegregated South African beach highlights a crucial point. Physical proximity does not automatically equal peace. When researchers mapped the demographic data, it revealed extreme self-segregation. The dots representing different groups formed completely isolated clusters. Humans naturally cluster with their in-group. Surveys show that individuals in these separate clusters often express a genuine interest in making contact with those outside their group. However, they assume the other side does not share that interest. This mutual false impression, called pluralistic ignorance, creates an invisible barrier of anxiety that keeps potential allies apart. Physical closeness, when lacking equal status and shared intent, functions as an incubator for escalating friction and prejudice. To actually de-escalate the camp war, Sharif pivoted his strategy. He engineered a series of camp-wide crises. He sabotaged the water supply. Then later, he deliberately stalled a truck carrying their food. These artificial emergencies forced the Rattlers and the Eagles to instantly drop their animosity. They had to work together to ensure their mutual survival. Sharif had introduced a superordinate goal. This is an objective so massive and existentially vital that it completely overrides existing group differences, demanding a unified, cooperative effort. Shared high-stakes predicaments force a reconfiguration of social identity. When the threat is external and immediate, the internal tribal boundaries that once seemed permanent simply dissolve. The aftermath at Robbers Cave was striking. After fixing the infrastructure together, the boys began sharing meals organically. On the final day, they demanded to ride the exact same bus home, singing together, the factional divide erased. This psychological sequence scales far beyond 11-year-old boys. The exact same mechanisms that drive summer camp rivalries also drive adult institutions, corporate conflicts, and international relations. We can see this applied through cooperative learning. In a jigsaw classroom, diverse students are divided into small groups, where each person is given just one piece of the lesson. To pass the test, the students are entirely dependent on each other's unique puzzle piece knowledge. By engineering our educational and social systems to mandate this kind of mutual reliance, we can dismantle prejudice before it has a chance to weaponize. Resolving a social trap requires changing the payoff structure. When cities give fast lane access to carpoolers, they are using structural incentives to make cooperation the most mathematically rational choice for the individual. Peace is the outcome of a creatively managed conflict. It is the process of reconciling perceived differences to reach a genuine accord, transforming a fragile calm into mutual benefit. If we accurately identify our cognitive biases and deliberately design superordinate goals into the architecture of our societies, we possess the scientific framework to transform our bitterest rivals into our greatest allies.